You are now listening to Do What I Do podcast with your host, Mitch. Episode 1, Pilot. Man, oh man, life is pretty great right now. I'm drinking H2O while looking at a view of water. That's really how you have to be living life these days. Just floating. Man, this is my second time being back on this podcasting game. I did this back in 2020 under the name The Unfiltered Virgin. A virgin with unfiltered thoughts. Cool concept, great name, and it's also a nice, cool flex because, there's not many virgins out there in their 20s these days. Shouts out those that are a virgin in their 20s right now. We gonna get through this. So yeah, I literally just I'm just gonna relieve some frustration, stress that's going on within my current life back in 2020. Because let's face it, most normal people they were going through it during that time. We're not going to give no recognition, no attention towards that time, but just know you weren't alone. And I really just did just for that, and it felt like a nice stress reliever. And I feel like, podcasting has now become that certain tool that is great for your mental health. Actually, I feel like it's becoming more effective than going to therapy because you get to be yourself. You get to sit, relax, and be yourself. Talk about things you want to talk about, whether you're passionate about something or you have common interest in things that are going on in life regarding music, sports, entertainment, politics, or whatever, or just about anything. I feel like we don't give podcasting enough credit towards the effectiveness it can do on your mental health. So, I'm really just coming back here under a new name titled Do What I Do podcast. And I feel like do what I do is just like my motto in my own personal life. Throughout the course of my life, I just did whatever I wanted to do. Becoming a basketball player in high school, being a rapper / singer, being an author, being a film critic. I just did whatever I wanted to do, and I just didn't give much of the slightest care to anybody what they say about me or what I just did, because if I'm enjoying what I'm doing, that's all that matters. And that goes to anybody else in life. If you want to do anything in life, just do it, regardless of you're going to get any income out of it, because, this podcasting game, especially, people come in this thinking to themselves, oh, I want to secure the bag. If you go into podcasting with that mentality, you're going to slowly just hate it and just fall back off of it, because this ain't about securing a bag. It's about talk about things you enjoy talking about and hoping to connect to an audience, people out there, so you can just have a effectiveness in conversations about the things you like. And it's beautiful. And that's why I came back to this, because I just this is what I want to do for my free time. I feel like doing podcasting on the free time is just much better than going on Instagram, just waiting for new posts to come out. I feel like this is better than going on Twitter, just hating yourself on a daily basis. I'm not on Twitter that much anymore, tweeting, thank God. I used to have 10K plus tweets. It's unhealthy. And this, I feel like, is more healthier. So what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about things I like to talk about regarding film, regarding sports, regarding music, or whatever I feel like is worth to just be up for discussion. So without further ado, let's do what I do. The Last Voyage of the Demeter tells a fictional tale based around a captain's log, documenting the captain's final voyage on the Demeter sailing on the sea. Unfortunately for the captain, his final voyage turns out to be a complete nightmare, as the cargo he was carrying in the wooden crates turns out he was carrying a terrifying blood-sucking beast known as Dracula, as Dracula will take down his victims one by one on the ship, night by night. This film comes from filmmaker Andre Overdahl, which I mostly known him for his 2019 film Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. A pretty good horror film, as he primarily makes horror films, which I've never seen his other projects. I had low expectations, but fortunately enough, I must say this film was actually a bit surprising. For me, the biggest flaw of this film by far is the length. It needs to be cut down about 20 to 30 minutes. Feels way too long, as it does drag here and there. Concept alone, the idea of Dracula on a cruise ship taking down crew members one by one on uncharted waters is pretty neat. I feel the film is at its best when it's going through its Dracula sequences, as the death sequences were entertaining and a bit fun. I didn't mind Dracula barely having any character development. I feel the minimal myth exposition was fine enough, as I felt him being an unknown entity that just came out of freaking nowhere fit the tone with the cruise ship members. I will say, while length time is an issue, surprisingly enough, this film has fairly executed emotional ties, including fairly executed character development with our lead, Clemens. There's actually a couple great moments of dialogue scenes with Clemens that does struck a chord with you. I feel this film could have been a fun creature feature film, but I understand Andre wanting to tell something far more personal than just cashing in on entertainment value, in which some ways he succeeds and some ways he doesn't succeed. I give The Last Voyage of the Demeter a B-. I do recommend it. It's worth checking out. Jules tells a story about an elderly man named Milton whom lives alone, and there is a growing concern he's encountering memory loss. Milton one day has a spacecraft crash on his backyard, destroying his bird bath, which Milton is quite sad about losing out on his bird bath. However, despite missing out on a bird bath, Milton at least received a new pal with Jules the alien. Jules the alien, while not able to communicate with Milton, provides company for Milton, as they'll bond a simple friendship, while Jules will make some more friends in the process. Jules comes from Mark Turtletaub, whom is best known for Sony Pictures Classics film Puzzle. Personally, I prefer Puzzle over Jules, but they both share a similar vibe, as both of these films are good but aren't worthwhile. Jules for me excels simply by the simplicity of Jules's impact on not only Milton but for the other elderly characters as well. While Milton is dealing with an extremely lonely life where he's not taken seriously, whether it be the town hall meetings he goes to expressing his concerns with his small town, he's also hitting a crossroad of him potentially going into a facility considering his mental status. It feels as if Milton wishes he can just be treated as a person in which he is genuinely cared for, as that is what Jules is here for. Jules may not be able to communicate with Milton, but Jules is there to just thoroughly listen and hear out Milton, which that's exactly what Milton wanted all this time. Sometimes when you're going through it in life, you just want one to just listen and genuinely care, as I feel this film does a solid job in executing that. I give Jules a B. I recommend this film, but don't be surprised if you find it dull. It does have its comedic moments here and there. It's mainly a straightforward drama. I'm not going to put Untold, Johnny Football on my letterbox of films, 2023 films that I've seen this year, since it's a part of a documentary series compared to the likes of 30 for 30. but it's worth discussing. Untold Johnny Football is a documentary centering around former Texas A&M Aggie and Cleveland Brown quarterback Johnny Manziel, as this documentary will reveal the toxic, alcohol, drug, partying nature of a once promising young NFL draft prospect suddenly being out of the league in just 2 seasons, becoming the biggest bust of the 2010s. I loved Johnny Manziel. He was truly a phenomenal prime spectacle of a college quarterback, as he was must-see TV. He truly put Texas A&M on the map for me, as they were once a team I only knew being a part of a Thanksgiving game tradition against Texas. As much as I love Johnny Manziel, I feel this documentary was a massive disappointment for me. While the documentary does have enough substance regarding constructing an engaging tale, I mean, there are sprinkles of WTF moments here and there that were crazy once info was revealed. However, I feel this documentary is half-assed. Like, there's a massive chunk of Johnny's life post-NFL that is worth exploring that doesn't get told at all in this film. Like, where's Johnny's rebranding of comeback season? What about his time in the Canadian Football League, the AAF? The Fan Control League? What about his first marriage that led to a quick divorce? His turn to golf? As you can see, I'm a Johnny Manziel fan, so I quite have been following his life post-football for a little bit until, like, when he got into his golf podcast phase, and I just turned off after that. I mean, there's so much here to explore, yet the filmmakers rather just say after the NFL nothing happened to Manziel's life other than he continued to party, drink, and did drugs, which that's actually wasn't the case at all. Also, the conclusion of this film was rather strange. Like, Johnny reveals he was bound to commit suicide, then 10 seconds later the film is over with Johnny just hanging out with his bros. What? I feel like not enough thought was made into this project, feels rushed and half-assed. I give Untold Johnny Football a C-. I would just rather watch his college highlights than watch this. Man, if Johnny Manziel played in today's college football, he'd probably be the first college athlete making 8 figures. Mans was robbed of so much money, which brings into a perfectly transition to our sports discussion. College football, in terms of conference structure, this is getting beyond ridiculous. First, you have USC and UCLA leaving the Pac-12 for the Big Ten. Now the Pac-12, let's just face it, it's almost completely dismantled, as you have now Oregon and Washington joining them in the Big Ten, along with Arizona State, Colorado, and Utah joining the Big 12. What the heck is going on, man? What gives? There are a couple of reasons to understand these moves from a competitive perspective. For years, when the college football community looks at the Pac-12, they are never taken seriously, as you really have to have a perfect season in order to get into the college football playoff. However, the Pac-12 has finally come around to being exciting again from last season, as it truly was a breath of fresh air year for the conference, as it was an extremely competitive year in 2022. I mean, if USC didn't choke in the conference championship game against Utah, they would have been in the college playoff instead of, say, TCU or Ohio State. I feel tolerance and patience wore down some teams, having to be perfect to get recognition. But I feel the tide was churning as the committee was going to take this conference seriously again. But understanding that perhaps teams would have loved to be in, say, LSU's position of last year. I mean, a team in which, if they would have won outright at 11-2 with a conference championship under the belt, they would have been in the playoff last season. I mean, how many teams are able to secure that privilege to have 2 losses and secure a playoff spot? That's the benefit of playing in a strong conference like the SEC. From a college player transitioning to the pros perspective, I can understand perhaps you can reason, as you can say, players can say they're preparing for the pros. As on a week-to-week basis, players will have to adjust different time zones from the West Coast time to the East Coast time as they'll get better practice like the pros do with these, changes in conference. But in my opinion, I find all these moves to be beyond ridiculous. I find the constructed design of college football from a conference perspective to be one massive circus. Like, do we really have to have all these schools taking on unbearable traveling measures? We're talking a rough average of 2,200 plus miles of airfare or bus fare or whatever on a week-to-week basis. That's freaking nuts. Conference play for me should feel fairly coastal, as traveling to feel somewhat of a convenience rather than a massive haul. I mean, that's the whole beauty of college rivalries. You're basically playing in their backyard, which is no longer here at this point, which is a damn shame. I don't feel it's fair to the players, understandably, from a Cardell Jones quote, "We're not playing school." However, not every player is guaranteed to be an NFL prospect, as perhaps their education, not to mention their mental state from all the traveling, will eventually wear these players down and not be able to perform well on and off the field. And I have to say this one thing. I don't want to hear none of these colleges ever talk about climate change. I mean, you're perfectly okay with these teams traveling 2,200 plus miles on a week-to-week basis, burning out jet fuel, burning out gasoline fuel on a week-to-week basis. So I just don't want to hear about climate change anymore, because it's just hypocritical at this point. Like, for real. Come on. It just feels like college sports as a whole is getting out of hand, including NIL and especially the transfer portal. NIL is a great and fair concept. However, when it becomes a bidding war to secure recruits, that's where I have a massive issue with it, as then it becomes full-blown bribery, and not because the intentions of the player is to go on and be competitive to hope to win championships. Obviously, NIL doesn't impact talent. You're going to find talent anywhere you go. Players will always be overlooked, so it doesn't change the competitive nature of the sport. Just need to find some proper form of regulation is all. Don't necessarily know just how, but this whole bidding war nature should never be allowed. Transfer portal, I feel, is getting abused. I don't think players should be leaving a school every single damn year, regardless of what a university or a program is making from a financial standpoint. It's still not fair to verbally commit to a school to just leave the following season, especially during bowl season. I don't like these college players just saying, I'm going to the transfer portal. Sorry, I'm not going to play in a bowl game. There's fans that travel. They pay good money for tickets to watch you play in a bowl game, and you can't just sit out for these fans, man. Bowl season is the heart and soul of college football as well. Bowl season is just fantastic, as I feel like, transfer portal needs to be reserved for the end of the season, not during bowl season. We need to put that in place as well. I feel regulations need to be set requiring players to commit to a school for a minimum of 2 years before transferring to another school. 2 teams in 4 years is a much more reasonable solution to this problem, as I feel coaches, recruiters, and especially fan bases are just about fed up with the toxic nature of the transfer portal. College football will figure it out. Thankfully, the sport will continue on to be the best in all sports, college and even pros included. It's nothing is better than college football. It's the greatest sport of all time. Which other sport can fill up 100,000 plus fans just going massively crazy over it. It's nothing like it. It's the greatest experience, the greatest sport ever. College football, number one all the way. But man, they just need to find some common ground and proper regulations for both teams and players to fall in line with. And, I have hope for it. I do have hope for it. They'll churn it around very soon. Oh boy, we have some breaking news. Ezekiel Elliott, former Dallas Cowboys running back star, has just signed a 1-year deal with the New England Patriots. Deal is worth up to $6 million. Man, I feel this acquisition the Patriots made right here makes a lot of sense. You have your RB1 with Stevenson, but the team needed a RB2, as I feel Montgomery was just not going to cut it for that role. This deal isn't worth going wild and crazy for, given Elliott's age and his production in terms of rushing yards isn't where it used to be when he broke out the first few years he's been in the league. However, I feel it's very important when considering having a running back too. If a running back can produce points over yards, then by all means, he is definitely worth it, as Elliott, surprisingly enough, had a quiet 12 touchdowns on the ground. I also feel Elliott's presence makes perfect sense considering the offensive style of the Patriots. It's not really a much pass-happy offense, as Belichick keeps it fairly balanced from the passing and run game. So Zeke should be able to receive 12 to 15 carries a game if he's producing on a fairly consistent rate, as Belichick will immediately keep him on the bench if he's not doing so. He doesn't have to have a high yards per carry as long as it's a productive 3.5 yards per carry and he's getting in the end zone, he should be just fine. Does this acquisition change the Patriots' current status in the AFC East? Not quite, but does give them something to look forward to in terms of their offense, in which needs to get into the end zone more. Oh man, my total under wins for the Buffalo Bills bet is getting more beautiful as the week goes on. I love it. Goodness gracious. Another breaking news that literally just came out a couple hours ago. Running back Dalvin Cook has signed a 1-year contract with the New York Jets. Deal is worth up to $8.6 million. Well, all the pressure is on Aaron Rodgers now. You have a defense, you have receivers, you have tight ends. Now you have a stacked running back core with Hall, Carter, and now Dalvin Cook. There is literally no excuse for Rodgers to not at least get to the conference championship game. I would say Super Bowl or bust, but he's not in the NFC no more. No. He's in the AFC. It's way too tough. More competitive, more competition, greater QB battles. It's just too tough, of a conference. So let's just remain giving reasonable expectations. Okay, let's be reasonable. Not too sure why Cook was let go of the Vikings. I guess Cook got tired of losing or wanted a new start, so he figured, heck, let me go. It's too cold in Minnesota, cold in Minnesota, too cold in Minnesota. Cook is, he still has plenty left in the tank. Another 1,000 plus yard season with 10 total touchdowns to go along with it. I feel this acquisition really puts Jets in the driver's seat in the AFC. Of course, you got to keep your eye on the Chiefs, Bengals, Ravens, just to name my contenders in AFC. But with what the Jets have as a roster, offense and defense, this is destined to be a special team. This really is. Oh, can't wait. Oh boy, NFL preseason. I mean, it's about the same feeling I feel from the likes of NBA Summer League. Your main interest is on the rookies and really nothing much more than that. It's fine for family time out, I suppose, unless it's the Raiders where they're charging $100+ for preseason games. That's absurdity to me. I feel I'm more of a spring training kind of guy. The experience of spring training is just pure joy. If you ever get a chance to go out to Fort Myers for the Red Sox Twins experience, I highly recommend it. It's an awesome time out. Back to NFL preseason. I guess I'll briefly talk about my standouts for week 2. I'm only doing this week, then I'm just no longer talk about NFL preseason. All right, let's get to it. NFL preseason standouts. My standouts. Former 2-time national champion Stetson Bennett put up some solid numbers, going for 17 for 29, 191 yards, 1 touchdown. I feel Bennett is by far the biggest sleeper QB pick of the 2023 QB draft class. I feel you keep him riding the bench, learning from Matthew Stafford for 2 more years. He's going to be a solid QB in my opinion. He's been proven a winner. He's great energy. He has great energy. Maturity is already given despite that little drunk incident during post-national championship. That wasn't pretty. But trust and believe, Bennett will be a good QB in the future. Zach Wilson, throwing bombs, banging moms, all day. He's looking good for his second straight week in a row, putting up 14 for 20, 123 yards, 1 TD. I hope the Jets do not give up on this young man. Let him learn and grow with his idol, Aaron Rodgers, for his 2-year Jets tenure, and hand the keys on over to Wilson. He'll be ready by then for sure. The Bears, baby. This is going to be fun. The Justin Fields and DJ Moore QB-WR duo takeover is here, and it's already beautiful. Oh boy. Fields going 3 for 3, 129 yards, 2 TDs. DJ Moore, 1 catch, 62 yards TD. You saw that. It's just a little bubble screen, and he's just gone. He's just gone. The league is in big trouble. If the Bears have a reasonably average to decent defense, the North will be ours. Baker Mayfield made his way to the best state in the country, and so far he digs it. Putting up 8 for 9, 63 yards, 1 TD. You have Evans. You have Godwin. I'm not saying Bucks will do anything. But if Baker can make of what he has in his WR core, there's no excuse to put up solid numbers during his tenure with the Bucks. Derek Carr found a new home with New Orleans, as he has certainly taken in some craw. 6 for 8, 70 yards, 1 TD. Nice start. Can it carry to the regular season? Who knows? Then again, he's a stat patter, so than a winner, so it's likely going to happen. Finally, our last standout, Aiden O'Connell. I had no idea who this QB was under center for the Raiders, but this QB from Purdue showed us something, putting up 15 for 18, 141 yards, 1 TD. I enjoy hearing about players I can't recognize. Then they show me I should take notice of them. Hopefully O'Connell makes a backup spot under Jimmy G. Could see playing time in the regular season. You never know. All right. The NFL preseason stand-downs for me. Oh boy, the first 2 picks in the draft. Oh no. Bryce Young going 4 for 6, 21 yards, and CJ Stroud going for 2 for 4, 13 yards, 1 interception. Listen, man, we're not overreacting at all. This is the first game of the preseason for both of these QBs. But still, a combined 34 yards for 6 for 10 and an interception. Gotta give us more than that. I feel Stroud has to get used to it, just because you're thrown into the Wolves with the Texans, an organization in which doesn't necessarily help the QB whatsoever, with a lacking offensive weapons and a defense as they expect great results from a rookie QB or a 2-year QB. Just know if things don't work out in Houston, it was never your fault, Stroud. I'm just saying. This hurts me, but I have to do it. Mitch Trubisky, 1 for 4, 10 yards, 1 interception. I love Mitch. My name is Mitch. He's the first QB that's ever been named Mitch that was drafted by my favorite team. Yet, Mitch, what gives, man? You can't have these numbers, Mitch. Not in the preseason, Mitch. You're not a rookie no more. You're a vet. Act like it. Hope for success for Mitch this week if he's in the game, but please don't play like this again. For the love of God, please. Oliver Anthony Music took the social media and music industry by storm as his recorded acoustic song Rich Men North of Richmond has came out of nowhere, performing well, charting on iTunes and securing millions of views on YouTube, which the song was recorded outside. There's become a trend recently in American-made music where Americans are coming to rally around songs exposing the harsh truth in terms of problems and distastes within the current state of this country. Within these songs, the songs are in no way disrespectful towards the country itself or anybody in general, but these songs are emotionally riveting and deep to where you have millions of people feeling at ease that they are not the only ones that feel this way about the state of the country, the administration, etc., etc. People are starving for music that actually have meaning, purpose, and substance behind the songs. That's why songs like Aaron Lewis's Am I the Only One, Jason Aldean's Try That in a Small Town, and this song especially are really striking a personal chord with the American people. These songs actually are deeply personal, revealing where the American people can relate, whom are just completely fed up with this disgraceful administration. Not too sure where Oliver's career goes from here, but it's refreshing to see an artist letting the little guys know if you want to create art, there's really nothing stopping you to do so, even if it's in your backyard. Just a really good, pure, genuinely good song. I recommend checking out Rich Men North of Richmond by, what was the man's name? Oliver Anthony Music. I highly recommend it. It's a really good track. Alright, I'm going to wrap this up with another project that I recently listened to. I recently checked out Trippie Redd's A Love Letter to You 5 album. Trippie has been on a slump these past couple projects with Trip at Night and, Mansion's Music? Music spelled M-U-S-I-K. I've only heard Mansion Music solely through snippets on iTunes. Sounds like interrogation torture music, if you ask me. Good Lord Almighty. What is Trippie Redd doing on this project, for real? A Love Letter to You 5 is exactly the type of music Trippie Redd should be making all the time. He strives on his R&B sound more than any genre that he tries to experiment with. I mean, his rapping isn't bad, but when he gets to like screamo, loud, heavy metal territory, you're just completely baffled as why does he turn to this kind of obnoxious sound? I really don't get it. A Love Letter to You 5 features some enjoyable tunes that do get into your feels on a late night. For me, the best song on this project by far is A Feeling featuring Sky Morales. A lovely sounding, fairly written duet that feels like you're partaking in a romantic montage on some kind of like, I don't know, cloud. I guess we'll call it cloud. I don't know. I feel the final few tracks for me are losing steam with the project. Some of the rap numbers don't quite work too well with the tone of this project. However, I felt Took My Breath Away was a strong rap record on this project. Felt a similar vibe with Biggie's Juicy. I'm not saying that song is no way just as good as Juicy, but the vibe of that song compared to that song was similar in comparison. I hope Trippie continues to just make these kinds of projects. I really feel this is where he excels the best in terms of style and sound especially. Fairly decent project. I grade this 5 out of 10, which is, decent or average. I'm going with a decent grading for the 5 out of 10. I do recommend checking it out. It has some very nice tunes on this project. Very, very nice tunes. Before we conclude this first episode, I'd like to give a special shout out to the Word of Life Church out in Fort Myers, Florida, celebrating their 40th anniversary. This church has been my favorite church out of all the churches I've been to, whether it be in Vegas, Florida, Buffalo, New York. I've been to churches out in Buffalo, New York, that one Catholic church. That was an interesting one. Not only is the Word of Life Church passionate about expressing the Word of God while delivering a tell it like it is approach, but the church does a tremendous amount of work to help out the community, mainly through their New Life Dream Center program. They've helped roughly hundreds, if not thousands, of those struggling with addiction. It's been an honor and privilege to help out a church in which you know exactly where your money is going towards, as it's going back to a worthy cause. I just want to say God bless and congrats and thank you to Pastor Gaspar for all the great work he has done these 40 years, making a massive differences for families and people's lives, man. Excellent job what you've done these 40 years. Well, that's all for me today. We gonna do what we do, man. See you next week on I Do What I Do.